It is said that wars are only won upon the anvil of honor.
Others believe victory requires strategy and a mastery of power.
War is deception. A game played best from the shadows.
Only strength and raw power can assure total dominance.
But of course, you could forget all that. And just have fun! Hearthstone! Heroes of Warcraft.
Alright everyone, we are going to be doing a beginner's video today. I've had a lot of requests on people wanting to know, as a beginner, what some of the card effects on some of the cards mean. For beginners, we're only going to go over a few. Most of them are going to be some that you're going to run into early on, and some of them we're going to come across a little bit later, because when we first start out, we actually only start out with one hero, and we eventually have to unlock the other 8. So let's take a look at some of these basic card effects. The first one we're going to take a look at is going to be the basic of basic, and that is going to be the taunt card effect. The taunt card effect basically means that this minion has to be attacked first. Before you can attack your opponent's hero, before you can attack your opponent's minions, you have to destroy a taunt first before you can do anything else. A taunt is basically something that you have to destroy before you can attack other minions. It basically protects your minions and it protects your heroes from minion damage and from face damage. But with some of the other taunts, there are some taunts that are different mana costs. Throughout the beginner's portion of this, we'll see some taunts of different values as we're playing. The next basic card effect we're going to look at is going to be the effect called Battle Cry. Basically what Battle Cry means is when you play a minion, it's going to do something right away. So one of the beginner cards that we're going to end up having that's going to have a Battle Cry is going to be our Elven Archer. And its Battle Cry is it deals 1 damage, which means we take our Elven Archer from our hand and we place it on the battlefield, and it's going to trigger that minion's Battle Cry, which means once we place it on the field, we can now do an extra point of damage to our choice of a target. Could be a minion, could be the opponent's our opponent's hero. Battle cries are something that happens when you initially play the card. The next effect we're going to take a look at is going to be the Death Rattle effect. The Death Rattle effect means that it's going to do something when it dies. So we play our Leper Gnome, We pass our turn. Our opponent kills our leper gnome. When our leper gnome dies, its death rattle is going to be activated. Again, death rattle means when a minion dies. When a minion dies, it's going to trigger the text that follows the death rattle. So in this case, when the leper gnome dies, it's going to deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. We'll look at one other death rattle that we're going to have early on, which is going to be the loot hoarder. The loot hoarder's effect is that we draw a card. So when our loot hoarder dies, we're going to be able to draw a card when it dies. One more time. Death rattle means it does something when it dies. The next effect we're going to look at is going to be charge minions. Charge minions are cards that can attack immediately. It means we don't have to wait till our following turn to be able to attack with a charge minion. A charge minion means as soon as we place it on the battlefield, it can attack immediately. So we play our Stone Tusk Boar, and since it has charge, it will immediately be able to attack as soon as we play it on the battlefield. The Bluegill Warrior, as soon as we place it on the battlefield, immediately it will be able to attack. The next card effect we're going to take a look at is going to be Stealth. Stealth is a fun and interesting effect that a lot of basic cards will have as we move along through getting cards and stuff. Basically what stealth means that when we play a stealth minion, we place it on the battlefield and it's going to be cloaked in a fog or in a shadow. And basically a stealth minion cannot be attacked by another minion, cannot be targeted with a single target spell. Now if you do decide to apply a priest spell, for example, like Power Word Shield, you can apply those to stealth minions. You can apply buff spells to minions, but you cannot attack with a single target attack spell on a stealth minion. Now you may be asking, when does a stealth minion lose its stealth? A stealth minion will lose its stealth the first time it attacks. So say we play our Worgen Infiltrator, we place it on the battlefield, and we have to wait that one turn because it's got sleeping sickness. So what we have to do is we'll wait till our following turn, and if we choose to attack, say, our opponent's hero, our opponent will take the 2 damage, and our Worgen Infiltrator will now lose his stealth because it's no longer in the shadows, and it is now vulnerable to damage, which means now you can attack it with minions, you can attack it with single target spells, but the stealth stays in effect until it attacks the first time. The next effect we're going to look at is very common in Druid decks. A lot of the early on cards that Druids have the option of a choose one effect. A choose one effect means that you're going to have a choice between 2 effects from this card. In this case, with Wrath, it gives us, it says choose one. So we have a choice of either dealing 3 damage to a minion, or we can deal 1 damage and draw a card. A lot of these choose one effects are only going to be in Druid decks. Druids have a lot of different choices that you can do for Druids. Like say for example this spell called Mark of Nature. Choose one. We can either choose to give a minion +4 attack, or we have a choice of giving it +4 health and taunt. So the choose one effect you're only going to see in Druid. Druid has a lot of choose one effects, some for the good, some for the bad, some for situational gameplay, hence Wrath. We can either do 3 damage to destroy a minion, or if there's a minion that's only got 1 point of health left, we can go ahead and take that 1 point of damage and we get a card draw from it. The next effect that we're going to look at is usually found, there's a couple cards found in the warrior deck, and there are some neutral cards that have this enrage effect. Basically what the enrage effect means is when the minion takes damage, it gains the following effect. So in this case, with our Armani Berserker, his enrage is that he gains +3 attack. So say he takes 1 point of damage, we attack into something small and it takes 1 point of damage. He's going to start out at 2-3. We attack a minion that's only got 1 point of 1 attack and say 1 health. Well, if we attack it with this Armani Berserker, what's going to happen is instead of him being a 2-2, now that he's taken that 1 point of damage, his enrage effect is now going to trigger, and he is now going to gain +3 attack. So now he's going to be a 5-2. Again, he is a 2-3. We attack into a 1-1 minion and kill it. But by attacking the 1-1 minion, he takes 1 point of damage, and it triggers his enrage effect. So his enrage effect, the following text says that he will gain +3 attack. So now he will be a 5 attack with 2 health. A 5 attack with 2 health. The next effect we are going to take a look at is going to be Silence. We're going to go ahead and look at our Ironbeak Owl here. Our Ironbeak Owl is going to be one of our earlier cards that's going to have this effect. And basically what that means is that basically what silence means is if we have a taunt on our opponent's side of the field, when we play a silence spell, or in this case a minion with a battle cry, and again battle cry means when it is placed on the battlefield it's going to do something. So in this case our Ironbeak Owl's battle cry is that it silences a minion, which means if our opponent has a taunt on his side of the field and we play an Ironbeak Owl, when we play the Ironbeak Owl, it's going to trigger the battle cry, and it's going to silence that minion. And what silence does, it's going to remove all effects. all effects. That means if you're applying it to a taunt, a buffed minion, a minion that has a death rattle effect, a minion that has divine shield, which we haven't got to yet, but we will here in just a minute. But silence basically means that it removes all effects from a card. So if you want to finish off an opponent and you have that taunt in the way and you don't want to sacrifice your minions to kill the taunt, you can play a card that has silence or a silence spell card. And it will silence that taunt and you will be able to now attack your opponent. The next thing that we are going to take a look at is going to be Overload. Overload is a mechanic that is, or not a mechanic, well it is a mechanic, but it's also an effect that a lot of shaman cards have. Shamans have a lot of spells and minion cards that have a overload effect to them. So for example, we have a 1 mana lightning bolt here that deals 3 damage, and it has an overload of 1. Now, what the overload means is that your following turn, because you played this spell, you are now going to have 1 less mana next turn. So, say you play this on turn 1. Say you have it in your hand, you have 1 mana, so you're like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and play it just to do a little bit of damage. And so when your next turn comes around, when you should have 2 mana, now that you have that overload applied to your mana, you're only going to have 1. So overload means that you are going to have whatever the overload effect is, less of mana. So we looked at Lightning Bolt. Here's another spell, Crackle, that's got 1 overload. Ancestral Knowledge has an overload of 2. This card here, Elemental Destruction, has an overload of 5. There are actually also weapons that shamans have that actually have an overload effect also. This one has 1. Lava Burst here has 2. So if you play a lot of shaman spells in one turn, if you play say 3 different shaman spells and each one of them has a 2 overload next to it, that means that you're going to lose 6 mana your next turn. So with shamans, you kind of have to be really careful on how you play your spell cards, because most of them have an overload effect. Now again, overload means that you will have that much less mana next turn. So if it has an overload of 1, you'll have 1 less mana next turn. If it has an overload of 2, you're going to have 2 less mana next turn. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be Wind Fury, which, since we're already in the Shaman class here, we're going to go ahead and go over Wind Fury. Wind Fury basically means that when it is on a minion, or they also have a spell that you can give a minion Wind Fury, and they actually also have a minion, that means that you can give a friendly minion Wind Fury. What Wind Fury is that it allows your minions to attack twice. Wind Fury can be a good thing if you can get cheap minions out early on. Like, we have a Dust Devil here, for example. 1 mana, 3 attack, 1 health. If you get this on the field and your opponent does not kill it his first turn, that means that you are going to get 6 damage that you're going to be able to do to the opponent's hero or to 2 of his cheap minions that don't have, say, any attack. Say you're attacking a shield bearer, for example. A shield bearer is a card that is 1 mana, but it has no attack. So if they put this out on the field, you can still technically kill it because it has no attack. But if you guys noticed on that Dust Devil card, it has Wind Fury and it also has that Overload effect. So if we play him on turn 1, okay, turn 1 we have 1 mana. Okay, we go ahead and play this guy. Next turn, we're supposed to have 2 mana next turn. But since we played the Dust Devil on turn 1, the Overload means that we now lose 2 mana next turn. So instead of us having 2 mana next turn, we have no available mana available now. But the Overload is a very, very dangerous thing. If you spend too many spells all at once, you can make it to where you don't have any mana next turn if you play too many spell cards. So with Shamans, we have to be really, really careful with this Overload. And again, Overload means that you will have that much mana less your following turn. The next effect we're going to look at is going to be spell damage. There are a few cards that we can look at that actually have spell damage early on. The Cobalt Geomancer and the Dalaran Mage we will have access to early on. The Archmage we will, and the Ogre Magi we will have available to us early on as we start playing. Basically what spell damage means is if we have, for example, a Frostbolt that we want to play. We're playing a mage, and we have a Frostbolt in our hand that does 3 damage initially. So without anything added to it, it deals 3 damage. But if we play it with a spell damage card is going to add whatever the number is next to it for the spell damage. Now, as we said before, there's going to be several cards that we're going to have access to early on in the game that are going to have spell damage +1. There are other cards that do have higher spell damage, but in this case, for the explaining of the effect, is that the Dalaran Mage here has got spell damage +1, which means if we play him on the field first, and then we play our Frostbolt is now going to do 4 damage instead of the 3 damage that it originally does, because we have the spell damage to add to all of our spells. So spell damage can come in very handy, especially if we're trying to clear off a bigger minion and we're only 1 point of damage off, and we go ahead and play a minion that has +1 spell damage. it will allow us to kill that minion and possibly be able to clear that board and we have more control, or it'll just get rid of a bigger taunt that we won't have to deal with later on. But spell damage can be very helpful, especially when you have a spell heavy deck. The next effect we're going to take a look at is actually very popular in the Paladin deck. Paladins have a lot of, they've got a spell that you can actually give a minion Divine Shield. They have a minion that can give a minion Divine Shield. There's actually a couple minions that actually come with it already. But basically what Divine Shield means is when you play a minion with Divine Shield, basically what the Divine Shield does is the Divine Shield occurs once you've played the card. So say for example we go ahead and play our shielded mini-bot here. We go ahead and play him on the field, and once we play him, he's going to have this bubble of light that's going to pop around him, that's basically going to protect him while he's on the battlefield. And the Divine Shield basically means that it's going to take no damage the first time either we attack with it or the first time it's attacked. So say our opponent decides to attack a minion into our shielded mini-bot. If it has, say for example, our opponent's minion has 2 attack and 2 health, and it attacks into our shielded mini-bot, our opponent's minion is going to die, and our shielded minion is going to stay on the field unharmed, except that his Divine Shield bubble is now going to pop because he's taken that first initial attack. And again, as I said, Divine Shield means that it's going to place a bubble around our minion, and it's going to take no damage the first time it's attacked. No damage the first time it's attacked, whether we attack with it or our opponent attacks into it. Now in the case of us attacking our opponent's hero with a Divine Shield minion, now in the case of that, our Divine Shield doesn't pop because we're not actually attacking a minion that's going to take damage from it. So if we attack our opponent's hero, our Divine Shield will not pop. But if we attack our opponent's minions, or our opponent's minions attack us, it's going to go ahead and it's going to pop the Divine Shield. The next thing we are going to take a look at is going to be, we're going to take a look at freeze. Freeze is going to be found on a lot of mage cards. Basically what freeze means is it's going to basically freeze the minion or the hero if we choose to attack with a spell. Freeze means that it cannot attack till basically they lose their next attack. So say we frostbolt a minion, we end our turn, our opponent's minion stays frozen, and then he's not able to do anything with that minion because it's frozen. So basically they lose a turn on that minion. Now we will get our next turn, we can do whatever we want to do that turn, and then our opponent's following turn, the hero or the minion will unfreeze and you'll be able to use it again. So basically what freeze means is that it can attack for one turn, pretty much. If we attack a minion, it can attack for one turn. If we attack the hero directly, our hero, if they have a weapon equipped, cannot attack next turn. The last thing we're going to talk about in our basic card effects video for today is going to be secrets. There are a lot of heroes that have secrets. The two classes that have the most are going to be Hunter. Hunters have several secrets, and so do Paladins. But basically what a secret means is that we play it on our turn, and if our opponent does something to trigger the secret's effect, the secret will pop and the effect will happen. So, for example, we are going to use the explosive trap here. It's a hunter card, and the explosive trap card is a hunter secret. So we play the hunter secret, and the secret is only going to trigger when our opponent does something. And each time the text after the secret is going to be different. Not all the secrets are going to have the same effects. They're all going to have different effects, but in this case, whenever your hero is attacked, deal 2 damage to all minions. So we play the secret, we end our turn, our opponent decides to attack us with one of their minions. So when he attacks us directly, or if it attacks, if he attacks us directly, it's going to trigger this effect. And it is, when your hero is attacked, it's going to deal damage to all enemies. Another example is going to be Freezing Trap here. Freezing Trap's going to be different. Like I said, all the secrets are going to have different trigger effects. So we're going to play our Freezing Trap, and we're going to end our turn, and our opponent is going to do something to trigger the effect. In this case, when an enemy minion attacks, it's going to return it to our opponent's hand, and it's going to cost 2 more. So our opponent attacks with a minion, it's going to trigger this Freezing Trap, it's going to be returned to our opponent's hand, and now it's going to cost 2 more mana for them to play it. Let's see. We'll look at this one. Here's another trap that a hunter has. This one's secret effect is when one of your minions is attacked, summon 3 1/1 snakes. So that means we play this, we end our turn, our opponent attacks one of our minions. When our opponent attacks one of our minions, it's going to trigger the secret's effect. And the secret's effect is that it's going to summon 3 1/1 snakes because one of our minions was attacked. And as I said before, basically what a secret is it stays hidden until a specific action on your opponent's turn. So we play it, and our opponent has to do something to trigger its effect. And as I said before, the effects are different for all secrets. You just have to look at the text that follows the secret, depending on if it needs to attack the hero, if we have to attack, or if they have to attack one of our minions, if they summon a minion, if they decide to attack, if they decide to attack our hero, there are some secrets that will trigger that way as well. But that is going to be the end of this basic card effects video. The next video we're actually going to be starting a completely fresh and new game. So we're going to be starting fresh. We're going to start from the very beginning. And this is going to be a building block for some of the beginners, because now that I've gone over some of these card effects, when we get into matches, we can kind of explain, or I can kind of explain to you guys as beginners what the effects look like now that I've gone over them. So you'll be able to see what a taunt looks like. You'll be able to see what happens when a card is played as far as battle cry effect. You'll be able to see what charge minions look like when they're able to attack immediately. You'll be able to see what death rattles look like. You'll be able to see what Divine Shield looks like eventually. An Overload, Wind Fury, Silence, the Enrage effect, the Choose One effect. But that's going to be it for this basic card effects videos. But for all the beginners out there, my next video we're going to be starting out fresh, and we'll be able to see those effects in action. And as always, thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.